The entirety of the NBA was pissed off last week, from NBA media to NBA head coaches. The decision was unanimous. Everyone felt the same way. Everyone was pissed off when the Sacramento Kings abruptly fired Mike Brown. Me personally, when I found out the Kings fired Mike Brown last week, I thought this gave the pathetic Pelicans the perfect excuse to fire Willie Green. I mean, that is usually David Griffin's MO when he is not emulating Elton John playing Candle in the Wind on the piano. Dana is emulating the decision-making skills of other NBA teams. Once the Kings fired Mike Brown, I figured it gave Dana the perfect opportunity to fire Willard. His firing would have stayed under the radar because everyone would have been talking about Mike Brown. Plus, no one really gives a shit about the Pelicans. But the Tank Commander lives on to lose another game. There were a variety of reasons as to why people were pissed off with the firing of Mike Brown. Number one, Mike Brown is very, very respected. He is one of the most respected head coaches in the NBA. The reason we saw so many other head coaches speak publicly and defend Mike Brown, they thought his firing was unjustified. To be honest with you, it was. It's not his fault that the Kings are an incompetent mess. It's not his fault that the Kings haven't been relevant since they were known as the Queens. Mike Brown lifted this dump out of WNBA levels of irrelevance, and he turned them into a team that people almost cared about. But of all the supposed reasons that Mike Brown was fired, there was one that stuck out to me the most. According to the New York Times, one of the reasons Mike Brown was let go, he was too critical. He was too hard on his own players. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you happen to stumble upon this video, be sure to check out my main channel, Behind the Line. Link to the main channel is in the description below. Lately, Mike Brown has been highly critical of his own players during press conferences, and rightfully so. Last week, he destroyed De'Aaron Fox in a press conference after he single-handedly lost a game to the Pistons, a game that eventually got Mike Brown fired. He has been critical of Sabonis in press conferences. The public criticism, it's become somewhat of a regularity with Mike Brown. Now, I don't have any inside information on this, so this is speculation on my part. But if I had to guess, the reason Mike Brown started calling his players out publicly, they were not listening to him privately. NBA head coaches aren't in the business of pissing off or embarrassing their own players. Coaches aren't stupid. They know it's a player-driven league, but at some point, if the players aren't listening to you privately, you got to do something to get their attention. Mike Brown damn sure got their attention, and it cost him his job. According to the New York Times, one of the reasons Mike Brown was fired, the players got tired of him criticizing them publicly. The players got tired of Mike Brown being a meanie. Really? You're going to let go of one of the better coaches in this league because your players can't take the heat? You're going to fire Mike Brown because your players got in their feelings? Notice, not one time have I referred to the players in Sacramento as stars. There's a reason for that. There are no stars in Sacramento. The Kings have the same problem that the Pelicans have. They have two max contract players who aren't max contract players. They have two max players who would be great second options, but neither one of them are the option, the guy. The Kings, they chose their players over their coach, which isn't unusual in the NBA. Matter of fact, it's standard operating procedure. But firing Mike Brown, it doesn't solve your real problem. For starters, De'Aaron Fox is still likely to request a trade. Many people believe that the Kings fired Mike Brown as a way to keep De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. Over 10 years ago, I saw this same story in Orlando when they fired Stan Van Gundy to keep Dwight Howard. Couple of weeks later, Dwight Howard still requested a trade. Firing Mike Brown doesn't solve the real problem in Sacramento. And it's the same problem that the Pelicans have. Your players are soft. Your players are allergic to tough coaching. Your players don't like criticism. They don't like to be called out publicly because they're worried about how it could affect their image. You know what else negatively affects your image? Being a loser. But KC, the Kings are 2-0 since Mike Brown was fired. Yeah, they beat the Mavs without Luka and Kyrie and a couple of other rotational players, and they beat the Sixers without Joel Embiid. Who cares? I don't understand firing Mike Brown, period, but I damn sure don't understand firing Mike Brown because your players are too soft to handle criticism. Give me your thoughts on this. Do NBA players have too much power? Are soft players removing hard coaching from the league? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you on the main channel.